Hi everyone, and welcome back to Sketch and Chill. Today I thought we'd look at the process of sketching and painting in a loose style. There are no set rules. Basically you just do what you want to do, but I'm going to show you the way I generally go about producing a sketch in loose style and also painting in loose style. So here we have a reference photo. It's a mill, as you can see, and it's taken in a village called Heege, which is in Derbyshire in the UK. Subject matter doesn't really matter, although I personally prefer buildings and urban type sketching. Right, so how do we go about this? Well, the first thing you need to do is obviously to draw it. That can be in pencil, ink, whatever you want really. Personally, I just prefer to use ink. Usually I use a fountain pen. Sometimes I use just a twig and waterproof ink. Okay, so the first thing, let's look at what I would term as a very loose sketch. For me, I sort of break it down into three types of sketching. You've got loose, you've got semi-loose, and perhaps what you might call tight. So the first thing I want to show you is something I threw together a few minutes ago, and I think it's clearly a very loose sketch. It took me 2 minutes probably to do that. It's not very accurate, but it doesn't really matter. It depicts the subject well enough, and that's one way of doing it. Okay, let's look at the second way, or what I think of as the second way, which is semi-loose. So we'll just take that away and we'll show you. This is one I did yesterday actually, or the day before. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So this is what I would call semi-loose. It's reasonably accurate. It took me about, I don't know, 15-20 minutes to draw. That's about all. And it's the way that I normally do draw actually. Now the next one you might call tight drawing. Now I haven't done a tight drawing to show you, but basically you could say that a tight drawing is almost architectural in nature. There may even be straight lines, great attention to detail, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's the way you want to sketch. That's fine, it doesn't matter. But for me, I tend to go for this sort of style, somewhere in the middle. Okay, so here we are back on my sketch, which I would call a very loose sketch. So the first thing to decide is, how to paint loosely. Well, again, there's a number of ways you can approach this. You can paint it fairly realistically. I think that speaks for itself, which is just copying the colours, if you will, as accurately as you can. That would be what I would call realistic. For me, I tend to go more for perhaps a semi-abstract style, if you will, which is just an individual representation of what we see here. I wouldn't try and follow the colours exactly. I'd just use these colours as a rough guide. So that would be what I would call semi-abstract. And the other way of doing it is what you might call just an abstract painting. So I probably wouldn't even use this as a guide for that sort of a painting. I'd just, pick some colours at random, throw them on there, mix them around and just see what happens. But anyway, the way I tend to do it is perhaps semi-abstract. So using this loose sketch here, let's just have a look at that. So let's just put that there as my guide. So I generally would do the sky first. So I'm using a water brush and a slightly wider brush just to put paint. Just to put fresh water on there. I have missed a bit here in a way, which is before getting into the actual style of painting, you might like to look at, well, quite how am I going to approach this? And I've broken that down into two very simple ways. There are many different ways, of course, but for me, I would look at wet on wet, which speaks for itself. So you wet the paper with clean water and then you put wet paint on top of it, obviously. And the other one, of course, is wet on dry paper. Okay, so this is obviously my loose representation of the mill. So to continue with this, what I think I'll do is I'll paint this quickly, and I'll use the wet on dry technique for and then when I've done this, I'll then come back to this one, which is my semi-loose sketch, and for this one I'll probably do my usual, which is wet on wet. Now, I'll be honest with you, I very rarely do wet on dry, so it's a bit of an experiment for me as well, really. I really don't know how this will turn out. So only way to find out is to give it a shot. So let's get the water brush to hand, and as I say, I'm only using this reference photo as a rough guide. I mean, basically we're looking at blue, reds and orange and various browns and yellow and green. So using that as a rough guide, where should we start? Well, let's start with the sky. And the colour I almost always start with, I don't know why, cerulean blue. Because skies nearly always are cerulean blue. So, not being too concerned about following contour lines, let's just go a bit stronger than that. Let's just put some paint down, see where it takes us, and let's just do some spatter. Okay, some clear water now, just to move the blue around a bit. And probably that will do. I'll just use a little bit of cobalt blue here, just for a bit more spatter. You can't believe the amount of trouble I get into with my wife spattering paint everywhere, because I'm in the corner here of the office with two adjacent walls. So you can imagine what happens sometimes. Anyway, that will do for the sky. And I think without further ado, we'll just get into the rest of it with this colour. I'm not sure what it's called, some sort of red maroon or something, I don't know. Actually, having said that, I think I might just go for, I think this is raw sienna. So again, just here and there. That'll do. And now some, what else have we got? I think this one is raw umber. So let's give that a little go. I'll probably do. Now what? A little bit of orange, I think. I think they call this orange yellow or something. Of course, the paint dries quite quickly, so you have to move quickly to get some sort of mixing going on. Or you can just help it along with a bit of clear water. A little bit of purple for good measure, here and there. And that might well do, you know. Perhaps put some yellow down here. And very quickly, before it dries, put a little bit of cobalt blue on top of it. And a little bit of yellow back on top of that. And to be honest with you, I think it's really nearly done. Just a bit for the windows and the door there. And maybe just a little bit on the trees and foliage here. Let's try some Prussian blue just for a change. And as ever, of course, trying to avoid overworking, which is so easy to do. And you know what? I'm going to stop there because I think I've already done enough there. So that's it, really. That's just, oh, okay, just a little bit here for this tree here. Okay, so there we are. That is what I call a loose sketch, a very loose sketch, and using the technique for the painting of wet on dry. So that's it. I mean, I could do a lot more to that, but I don't think I'm going to, because it's so easy to overwork these things. So we'll leave it there, and then we'll come back in a moment and have a look at the semi-abstract sketch I've done, and for that one I'm going to do my usual wet on wet. Just before we get on to the next sketch, I will finish this one off by outlining some of the contours in my pen here. Just, you know, to bring it out of the picture a bit. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop talking and do this, and then speed it up for the final video. Okay, so that's a wrap for that one. That's pretty much as far as I need to go on that without the risk of overworking. So we'll get back to you very shortly with the next one. Right, we're back now with the semi loose sketch here, which is the way I normally do sketching. And for this I'm going to revert to my normal technique of wet on wet, which is the one I usually prefer. So first thing, as always, the sky. Let's wet the sky and loosely around various objects, very loosely. It's a warm day today here in the UK. It's about 21 degrees or something. So it doesn't take long for the paper to dry. Okay, that'll do, I think. And as we get down the page, the clouds become more layered, like so. And we're about there, just a little bit of and I think we're done really, that'll do. So what I normally do if I'm doing wet on wet, I normally wait for the sky to dry, so I'll be back in a moment. We now have a dry sky, and again clear water. Oops. And as always, just randomly putting and there's always less is more, so I'm actually nearly finished, I think. There's always a temptation just to do that little bit more. Okay. Obviously the dome of the mill, I'm leaving that. The actual windmills themselves, I'll leave that. So what does that leave us? Well, we can do something on the wall, I suppose. Here and there a little bit of burnt umber, and maybe a little bit of raw sienna perhaps. and just give it a little bit of definition, a little bit of purple. Just here and there. I think that'll do for the wall. That just leaves the greens. Blue. What usually happens is that I put the blue on top of the yellow, and the blue sorts then dominates to an extent. So all I do then, I just go back with a bit more yellow. And what else? Just a little bit of orange here and there. I'm really just making it up as I go along, it doesn't matter. And we're nearly done. I suppose I could just do a little bit on this barn roof here, perhaps. What should I do? I don't know. Touch of blue and a touch of purple. That's it. And then one final touch. And just to green that out a little, put some more yellow on top. And I think we're done there. It didn't take too long. So there's the two different ways that I usually employ. I normally do this style of sketching, which is what do we call it? I've forgotten. Semi-loose, yeah, semi-loose, and wet on wet. But now and again, it's good to try something different. So I've gone very loose sketch, and just for change, I've gone wet on dry. So let's just put the two together for comparison, if we can. So, you know, none of them is better than the other, really. It's just different ways of doing it, that's all. Right, I think we'll call it a day there. So thank you very much for watching this video, and we'll be back with you in the very near future.